Hello and welcome back to Malbeefance channel. I'm Malbeefance for Coastal Virginia Esports, and we are playing Strategic Command WW1. I'm playing the Central Powers, the German Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. Excuse me again. And thanks to a French invasion of Belgium. Belgium is a minor nation with allied to Imperial Germany right now. So spring is in the air. It is turn 11 for the Central Powers, and in game it is March 27th, 1915. So a lot of the bad winter weather is over. Doesn't mean we still ain't going to get lots of rain, but right now the weather is clear. And if you've been following along, you'll know that I'm running out of time. I'm focusing on taking out Russia first. And the first part, excuse me, the second part of my overall strategy to take out Russia has been achieved. I've managed to create an encirclement in central Poland, where I've managed to encircle, 11 corps of Russian infantry. Along the way, we've destroyed a number of corps. So in order to get to this point, we're looking at anywhere from 14 to 2 dozen Russian units have been wiped out in order to get this far. Part one of the strategy was to go ahead and complete a defensive line all the way along the Eastern Front. And then once that was accomplished, part two is to go ahead and complete this encirclement. Now part three is to go ahead and reduce that encirclement, to go ahead and wipe out all of these units. And that will basically result in a collapse of the Russian central front, and we'll be able to push through to Minsk and Smolensk and ultimately on to Moscow. At the same time, what I'm hoping to do is also have enough forces available to be able to push into the Baltic states, take Riga, and threaten St. Petersburg. Again, with the objective being of knocking Russia out of the war first. Doing so will free up a huge amount of Russian and Austrian forces so that we can go ahead and we can move them over to the Western Front and put enough pressure against France to hopefully we'll be able to knock France out of the war. Doing so, knocking both of those nations out of the war, will go ahead and give the Central Powers a strategic victory. Along the way, we will apply force to go ahead and knock out Serbia and, if possible, knock out Italy. Here in the Ottoman Empire, the overall objective is to just hold on. The Ottomans do not have enough forces to put into the field to be able to actually defeat any of the forces that they're up against, but victory against Russia will enable the Ottomans to be able to take their forces from the Caucasus front, move them down into Egypt, and hopefully begin pushing back against UK forces in Egypt. Also, it is possible for the Ottomans to run the UK Dominion forces out of Kuwait and actually conquer the territory. So along the way, hopefully we'll be able to do that. And then also link up, once Bulgaria joins the war, the Austrians will have an overland supply route. Actually, it's the Germans that will have the overland supply route. They'll shuttle resources into the Austrian Empire, who will in turn hand them off to the Ottomans, making them more of a threat in the Mediterranean. All right, so that is enough of the introductory stuff. Let's go ahead and get at it. We'll go ahead and advance the turn and see. I'm primarily interested in what will the Russians do now that we've completed our encirclement. I expect them to throw an offensive against the encirclement to try and break it. That's what I'm expecting from them. Also continuing attempts to advance here in the Caucasus. On the Western Front, I expect a increase in pressure from the French and British forces in order to relieve some of the pressure against the Russians. So let's go ahead and advance the turn and see what happens. Do you really want to advance the turn? Yes, I do. All right, so decision point for the Germans. To increase our strength in the Mediterranean, we have a U-boat section that we can barge down to Pola and have it start there. Do we want to send it to Pola, the Adriatic? Yes, or do we want to keep it in the Baltic? No. I would rather keep it in the Baltic. I want to go ahead and increase my U-boat strength in the North Sea. I want to be able to break out and interfere with supplies going to Russia. Decision point for the Ottomans. The locust plague has drastically reduced food production around Jerusalem. Do we want to send production to relieve the food issue? Doing so will increase national morale by 1,000 points. So yes, we definitely want to do that because the Ottomans are having a little bit of a morale issue and we want to try and turn that around. Armenian uprising in Van. So that's a historical event. Rough seas hit the Deutschland pre-dreadnought. Luckily, it didn't cause any damage, but it may have caused them to lose a supply point. Austrian scientists progress in infantry weapons from 59% to 80%. That's very important. We have to get improvements in infantry weapons. Ottoman Empire has achieved trench warfare level 1. Great. That helps their defensive capabilities. There is your accounting sheet for production next turn. And now the computer's calculating supplies for the Entente. Excuse me there, chewing on a piece of ice. Keep my throat wet from all this talking. Alright, so we've got some redeployment going on down in Egypt. And the Russians are redeploying. Not sure if they're going to mount a counteroffensive or not. Computer's still thinking, still planning. Fleet units are moving. If my forces, if any of my units actually spot any of these naval movements, then the screen will jump over and show me that. But in the meantime, like here, the Russian pre-dreadnought Empresa, I believe the name is, just moved a little bit here. I think they're trying to elicit a response from me. All right, here comes the air offensive on the Western Front and on the Eastern Front. Now we have some advances being made. And so much for the siege of Antwerp. And here we go. The Russians are trying to break out of the encirclement. Do they get any help from the other side? If not, that's a good sign for me. This means the Russians are hurting for units. All right, the French trying to reinforce their line, getting ready for their next offensive. Heavier units of the Dominions are moving up on the Suez. Russian cavalry filling the gaps down in Galicia and the Ukraine. And there's the artillery coming into the game. All right. And the cavalry is being pulled back. Always a smart move. But leaving those holes open, especially down there in Bessarabia where I can get at that artillery, that's not a good idea. So Belgian government has to move to Liege. And the British are having secret talks with the Italians to get them into the war. And as some of you history buffs may already know, those talks wind up turning into lies. Italy swings towards the Entente. Diplomatic success in Portugal for the British. In Entente, favor increases 7%. And there's still got blockading units up there off of Scotland. And blockading units out in the Atlantic, blocking the North Sea approaches. Venezuelan soldier of fortune Rafael de, I'm not even going to butcher that name, Mendez joins the Ottoman army. This is a historical event. You can actually look him up. He survives the war, if I remember correctly. Bread rationing begins in Germany as baking cakes is verboten. Pancho Villa is defeated in Mexico, another historical event. And that's it for the Entente turn. Okay, not a lot happening on their side. The Antwerp detachment was destroyed, defending Antwerp. Summary of activity from last turn. And new units for the Germans. So there's another detachment. Put him down here because he's going to the Italian front. And I got a destroyer. New destroyer. And fighters. There we go. That's what I'm waiting on. Alright, we'll deploy them there for starters. Alright, so that's it for the new units. Alright, so we will start over here on the western front. We will get that artillery piece up to full strength. Get that infantry unit reinforced. Entrench him. So I was talking about this last turn. Let me hide the units here so you got a better look. Okay, so Liege is a fixed fortification, and my German infantry unit was enjoying that fortification bonus right up until the Belgian government moved into Liege, and there's a game mechanic that removes the automatic defenses. Now I got to actually tell the infantry unit to go ahead and entrench, and hopefully the entrenchment equals the fixed defense, but I don't think so. Again, that's the reason why getting that trench warfare technology up is so important. Now, something that I've been hitting on the last turn and this turn is diplomacy. That is the wrong report. There we go. So here's diplomacy. So you can see Italy is now up 57% towards the Entente joining the war. When they get up into the 90s, I will get an announcement saying that they're about to go to war. And then you can see real quickly where we are on other nations. Bulgaria is up to 46% in Germany's favor, all the way down the list here. Portugal up to 67%. Now, historically, Portugal did join the Entente. Whether or not they will in the game remains to be seen. I have not been putting any points into diplomacy because widening the front does not help the Central Powers. I mean, it is nice when you're able to get Switzerland to join the war in Germany's favor, because it really does screw up the French and Italian defensive line. You know, and it may be nice to go ahead and do things like try and get Spain into the war and whatever, but in the end, all you're doing is widening the front, and for the Central Powers, it's really not a good idea. So I'm waiting to see where the Allies, where the Entente, where they put their money in. Usually, if the computer is in control, they will be putting their points into Romania, and France and Britain, they'll divide theirs up. They'll try and get the Netherlands and Norway in order to interfere with supplies that the Germans are getting from those countries. And once I see if they are in fact doing that, then I'll go ahead and I will counter it. But until then, I'm going to use my money, use my resources for other things. And so that's the reason why you haven't seen me doing anything with the Central Powers for diplomacy. I mean, I may be forced to do so later on in the game, but for the time being, I'm just going to use those resources elsewhere. All right, so let's go ahead and reinforce the Belgian Infantry Corps. All right, there's not much else I can do here on the Western Front, but I will get the reinforced infantry corps onto the front line. All right, and then we didn't see any response by the Grand Fleet to anything that happened last turn out here in the North Sea. So what I will do, because it's not going to cost me much, I'll go ahead and I'll repair these two submarines, or U-boats. U-boat is a submarine, just U-boat is the German name for it. And then I got a couple of damaged cruisers here. So I'll go ahead and get them in port. Okay, that's not a cruiser, that's a pre-dreadnought. But you guys know what I meant. Alright, now I am about to give away a trade secret. This is a strategy that I use in this game to protect the fleet. Whoops. Get back there. So I'm maneuvering my ships into a protective formation. In the event that anybody comes down, any parts of the Grand Fleet or the French fleet come down and try to mine around Heligoland or the Jade Estuary. So usually what I'll do is I'll put the dreadnoughts and the battle cruisers in the center, and I'll surround them with the destroyers and light cruisers and the armored cruisers. Okay, and then usually I'll have the pre-dreadnoughts bringing up the rear. And so what that'll do is if somebody attacks, if they come down here, they're searching, because usually what will happen is sometimes the computer will use French destroyers, occasionally, but more often they'll use French destroyers, but occasionally they'll use British destroyers to go ahead and lay mines right along here. And sometimes it'll even get bold enough to try and get up around Heligoland and right up against Wilhelmshaven and Crewhaven. And so having the fleet sitting here, even though they're not doing anything really big, they are defending the coastline here. And occasionally I'll get a chance to pick off a destroyer or two. And then once I've got the submarines out here doing their thing, and I've got the fleet fully deployed, all of those ships that you saw last episode that are still in production, once I've got them out on the water, I can start using the German High Seas Fleet to go out and see if I can't entice the Grand Fleet to come out and maybe pick off a section of it or two. Alright, so he's only got 1 point of damage, so I'm not going to repair that, but I am going to try and damage Belfort again. So nothing became of that, but he did do a scouting mission for me at the same time. Okay, so move the Australians out because the Germans have a better defensive value. And then entrench the Austrians in the mountains. So now, in case anybody hasn't already picked up on it, the Germans, here, let me pull up research real quick. Okay, so here we've got the Austrians, and their command and control is still 0. Infantry warfare, they're working on that, but it's still 0. Okay, now compare that to the Germans. you have Command and Control Level 2, Infantry Warfare Level 2. And these give bonuses out on the battlefield. And so that's the reason why the Austrians aren't doing so well. The Italians will not do well either because they're in that same boat. It is possible to do research for a nation before it enters the war, but there's not a lot of resources available to do that. If you go back to the first couple of turns of the game, the first couple of videos, you'll see that I had a handful of production points available for the Ottomans that I put towards either research or I used them to fully mobilize what few units the Ottomans had available early on in the game. And so you are able to do that with nations that are still at peace, that have not entered the war yet. It's a limited resource. All right, so okay, so he's got a rating of 5. He's got a rating of 2. Okay, so move this guy up. Move him down. And then I got to get him down here to swap with the cavalry. And I still can't move anybody in there. Okay. So let's go ahead and swap him out. Alright, it's going to cost him 6 to get in there, so he will not be able to entrench. Alright, so Mount Ararat still has to remain undefended. That is not good. Alright, so we're done with the Caucasus front for the moment. These two Ottoman units here, I'm anticipating a landing. There is a Scottish Marine Corps unit here on Lemnos, and sometimes the computer will use it to do a Gallipoli invasion. There's 3 different locations where I've seen where the computer will land. Most of the time it lands here. Okay, there's been a few occasions where they have landed down here in the Dardanelles, and then there was even one occasion where they tried landing here by Smyrna. So you got to be on the look for it. Oh, excuse me. All right, finish getting that headquarters up to full strength. And all right, so it's been a while. I've forgotten. Okay, so here's where the guerrilla units, partisans, rebels, whatever you want to call them, this is where they're going to pop up. And that is something that the Entente player, whether it's the computer or not, that is something they can do. They can go ahead and put resources towards bringing them out. That's the reason why I'm moving these guys down here. I'm trying to head that off at the pass. So eventually they will show up. Eventually that scripted event will occur for the Entente, and I'm just trying to get forces down there before it happens. Alright, so that surrounds the Force D detachment here in Basra. So they're going to start losing supplies, and eventually when they're out of supply, I'll be able to attack and take Basra, so long as the computer doesn't send reinforcements. So that's pretty much going to do it for the Ottomans. I want to check their research here. So they're working on industrial technology. They're still working on trench warfare, command and control, and infantry warfare, infantry weapons, good. So I really do need to put something in logistics. I want to put something again in trench warfare, but they are working on that. So let me go ahead and hit logistics once. And then they've only got 47 points left. So let me go ahead, and I got to get this destroyer up to full strength. Do I have enough left? Nope. Can I do the light cruiser? Yeah, I can do 1 point on the light cruiser. Okay. So there we go. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the Serbian front here. We need to get the artillery up to full strength. So they still haven't moved into this hex, so I am going to now. And you saw as their line of sight got into these two hexes, so now I see these two units over here now. Alright, move the spotters a little closer. Get him his elite reinforcement. And let's get the Austrian Navy back into the fight. Alright, get him out there as far as I can. So the strategy here is that at the end of the turn, this submarine's going to get reported, okay, because it's interdicting this supply route. And so the computer's going to know where it is, or if it's a player on the Entente side, they'll know where this is. And so they'll send out ships to try and attack it, more than likely. So with him as far out as I can go ahead and next turn I can just move him around to other places so that they have to keep hunting for him. And then another thing that I need to do... Whoops. Oh, so there's a British submarine. Is that, no, that's a French submarine. French or British? No, that is a UK submarine, the B-11. Okay, so unfortunately that meeting engagement did a little bit of damage to the both of them. So, but it's used up so much movement that I can't get him back to port. So luckily I've got a number of ships that are at full strength. So while Italy is still out of the war, I'm going to move up some ships to try and protect the destroyer and see if I can't bag an Entente ship or two. All right. Alright, so much for the Serbian front. I think we already went over the Western front. Yes, we did. Yep. Alright. Do I have any ships further back here? Nope. Alright. Alright, so that leaves the Eastern front. And that was a bad move, leaving the artillery exposed like that. So it gets defensive fire. And that does some heavy damage to it. Wasn't able to wipe it out, but that's all right. They're going to have to withdraw now and repair. They're not that much damage. They're not going to try and attack next turn. Alright, see if we got any other opportunities down here. Oh, okay. So both of those guys got 1 to 3 on him. Ah, nuts, he pulled back. Smart move, but it frustrates me. I was going to bring one of these cavalry units up. We're going to swap them out, see if I could wipe him out. I don't want to bring a cavalry unit into this hex just to wipe him out. That's a death sentence. Alright, so we are set up to attack Warsaw. Well, before I do that, let's see what kind of odds we got. 2 to 2, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. So Warsaw is an important target. So despite the low odds, we're going to go for it. So scout it out. And now now have the artillery open up on him. Now, if you look, it's kind of hard for me to move the mouse and show you this. If you look down at the center bottom of the screen, over on the right-hand side where it shows the 1st Russian Corps, you'll see all the way down in the bottom right the readiness and morale of the unit. Okay, as the artillery fires, it lowers that, and basically that is a debuff on the infantry unit. When I get better artillery weapons, they will actually do damage to the unit. They'll actually take strength points away. But right now, the best I can hope to do is damage morale and damage readiness. Okay, so now the unit's gone gray, meaning that their morale is below 50%, which is a major debuff that benefits my attack. So now you remember, if you remember earlier in the video, the German 8th Infantry Corps had a 2 to 3 attack on Russian 1st Infantry Corps, and now it's 1 to 3 from the disruption caused by the artillery. So now I want to try and move him in. So we will attack with Landwehr Corps first. They have a 1 to 3 also, but they only did 2 damage. They only took 1. So now we'll attack from the north with 9th Corps. They've got 1 to 3 now. Again, they were only able to do 2 points of damage. So now 8th Corps has got a 1 to 5 odds after all of the fighting. And yep, they wiped them out. Alright, so now we advance and occupy Warsaw. I'm going to move the 10th Corps up here to finish the encirclement around the fortress here, whose name I can never pronounce. If there's anybody here, let me unhide. So down on the right, bottom screen on the right hand side, there is the name of that fortress. If there is anybody who knows how to pronounce that correctly, would you do me a favor and put like a phonetic spelling in the comment section for me so that I can pronounce that correctly? I'd appreciate it. Alright, so we got to see what we can do to further reduce this pocket. So I got 1 to 2 odds here, but the cavalry's only got 2 to 2. So he attacked, but he did not. He's got 1 to 3. He's got 1 to 3. But his trenches are also pointing in the wrong direction. I'd like to reinforce him. So let's go ahead and do that. And so if I'm going to do that, I might as well reinforce him as well. And this readies them for an attack next turn against the Russian, what is that, 43rd Corps. Alright, so I'm trying to reduce this pocket. So what do we got? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at best. 3 zip there. 2 to 1, 2 to 1, 2 to 1. So I don't have a lot of really good prospects. And the 9th Reserve Corps is low on supply. So let's swap him out. And we'll bring the headquarters unit a little closer. Hopefully that'll help. Alright, I can get Prince Rupek. How do you pronounce that? Prince Ruprecht? Yeah, I'm going to need help with a lot of these names. Von Bulow. He's in a good spot, so I don't have to move him. Alright. Alright, so now what about along here? Alright, so they moved up. The Russians moved up to my Baltic States line. So I could try going after that cavalry. Yeah, let's do it. 1 to 3. Oh, I only did 2. That's all right. So now, do I want to move into that kill zone or not? Discretion is the better part of valor, but the devil hates a coward. So I got an idea. Let's move him in there and entrench. He moves into the pocket and entrenches, and then he fills in the gap. There we go. And they still can hit him from 3 sides. Both of them can get hit from 3 sides. But they got a little bit better defense now. All right. I can't move the spotters. 1 to 3, 2 to 3. Let's go for it. Oh, yes, 0. And do we get the kill shot? Yes, we do. All right. All right, so that helps. All right, do I need to move the trenches? It would probably be a good idea. All right. I know it's like giving their backs. Damn it, I keep hitting the wrong button, sorry. There we go. I know it's giving an advantage to the units in the pocket, but they are going to be hurting for supplies soon. Even though there are towns and cities inside here that are providing supplies, they cannot provide supply for everybody. And so if the computer decides to attack with these units, it'll use up their supplies even faster. The help has got to be a coordinated effort. It's got to come from both the Russian side or Belarusian side and internally. And since they don't seem to be pushing down in this direction, I'm going to go ahead and leave that hole open for the minute. The zone of control generated by these 3 units will prevent anybody from getting down to that rail line and cutting that rail line. All right, did we forget anything? Yes, we did. My submarines. All right, time to start interfering with supplies going to Russia. Obviously, the more submarines that I've got on this supply interdiction mission, the more supplies get interdicted, up to the maximum amount that the computer is sending. There's no way for me to tell exactly how much MPP is being sent across that, but there is a way for me to tell how effective I'm being after the fact. And that's where the reports window comes in here, because one of the things that I can do is I can go to, there's Russia, there's your convoys. So here's the amount coming in from the convoys. Okay. So let me see. So just back before the end of February, they were getting 50 MPP production points. So, but I haven't been interdicting any, so that's why there's nothing under loss. All right. So, give you an idea, let's look at Serbia. And so here you can see my submarines get out there and they interfere. And like I said, this is all after the fact. So there's other things you can look at on here too, like losses. Keep track of that. There's also detailed losses. So this is more like a bragging rights screen for me. Okay. Because I mean, you can sit here and you look at, okay, Russia's lost 13 infantry corps. All right, yeah, they've got like 80. So, I mean, it helps, but all right. All right, so we got money left to spend. What do we want to do? I've looked at research. I really do need to purchase more Austrian units because I got to close this gap up here, make it strong enough to hold off the Italians for a little while until Russia's done. And then at the same time, I've got to get some decent units down here so that we can start pushing down the coast. So let's see what we got in production right now. We've got a infantry corps that is coming out probably next turn, end of April. That destroyer, dreadnought, way down at the end of the year, and then not sure if that's fighters because they have the silver engine cowling. All right, so I don't have enough to buy another infantry corps. So I better get the detachment just to be safe. All right, that leaves them with 55, so that's enough to do something under research. So we've got 2 in logistics. They're probably going to make a breakthrough next turn on that. Aerial warfare is definitely something that we should look at. I normally do not put any development into armored warfare and tanks. It takes a long time to get these out into the game, and then you can only deploy like maybe 1 or 2, and they are very susceptible to artillery. So I just don't waste the money. I mean, they are cool to have if you've got like a big offensive planned. They can be a center punch that really helps out, but it's at the end of the game by the time they're finally able to get out. The amount of production that you've got to put into it in order to be able to get them in a reasonable amount of time, you could have spent that money better elsewhere. So yeah, you're not going to see me put anything into armored warfare and tank development. At least not when I'm playing against the computer. If I was playing against a human player, it may be different because the strategy against a human player is way different. You cannot do the Russia First campaign against a human player. It's too obvious. A human player will know how to counter unless they're like really new to the game. And then you might be able to sucker them, but eventually they'll figure it out. The computer, on the other hand, it has its limitations. You can outsmart it. All right, so anti-submarine warfare and anti-aircraft defense are always good, but there we go, advanced submarines. All right. Okay, so now Germany. They've only got 167 left, so they're not going to be able to buy much. I've got another infantry corps coming. A couple more submarines towards the end of the year. Those fighters. That's a destroyer. Another blimp. Zeppelin. Oh, the railway gun. This is a mixed bag, the railway gun, because it is effective. It does do a lot of great work, but it's got limited range. So couple that with the fact that it's got to be on your rail lines, and it does have slightly limited utility, but it helps. It does. It does good work where it is able to be employed. All right, so let me get a few more detachments. What do they got left? 92. Let me have a look at research first. So yeah, I do need one more in trench warfare. And I really ought to put a second one in production technology. But no, there we are again, advanced submarines. And there's 42 left. So fighter development, or where's the blimps? Advanced, there it is, artillery, airship development. So they already got one in there. So it's down to those two. I've already got two in fighter development. Alright, I'm just going to bank it for next turn. Alright, one last look to make sure we didn't miss anything. So, Suez. Alright. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you very much. If you've been following the whole time, you made it all the way through this episode, I didn't bore you to tears, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe if you would, and I will see you on the next one.